We're going to begin with the U.S. men's national team. They kick off their 2025 slate with a friendly against Venezuela on Saturday in Fort Lauderdale. And then on Wednesday, a week from today, they will face Costa Rica in Orlando. 3 players have dropped out of the squad: Jesus Ferreira, Jalen Neal, and John Tolkin. Ferreira and Neal have minor injuries. Tolkin is completing a transfer to Bundesliga side Holstein Kiel. They have yet to name replacements for those players as of this taping. Still plenty of names of note in this virtually all MLS-based squad. So as these games approach, what are your overall thoughts?
So first off, on the players that are leaving camp, it's a little disappointing because I think we had mentioned this last pod. What this camp is important. And if there is to be anybody that's going to come out and challenge for spots and be involved in 2026, you would think that this would be either their first or their best opportunity to do so. And it's someone like Jalen Neal, who we have seen over the last couple of years, and I think a lot of people had high hopes for him, that he is not going to be there as a problem for a number of different reasons, not the least of which there is an opportunity in the center back position. And he's had some injuries over the last couple of years, just had this transfer over to Montreal. Hopefully a change of scenery is good for him. But relative to the national team, I would have liked to have seen him in these games because he's in this line of center backs that we are developing that in the modern day, with the playing out of the back, really is incredibly comfortable with the ball, and I think could have been something interesting to take a look at going forward. The Jesus Ferreira situation, him transferring up to Seattle, the reason why I would have liked to have seen him stay is that there might be some players that we think we know in terms of what they are. And under Poch, he might get them to do different things or get more out of them. And Jesus Ferreira is one of those there. And then the John Tolkin thing, he's been around for a while, and we've seen that he has these spurts and undeniably talented. I think this is much more about this transfer that evidently is going to happen with him, and get his ducks in order off the field with literally a move physically going over there. Hopefully that bodes well for him at some point in the future. But again, this was the opportunity to see some of these players.
So in terms of who's left, who do you have an eye on? We talked about in our last pod Matt Fries. He's being linked to clubs in Germany and the Netherlands, and he's somebody who Matt Doyle in a recent article identified as a candidate to be the U.S.'s starting goalkeeper in the 2026 World Cup. So certainly he's somebody you'd have your eye on.
Yeah, so we've said that there's a goalkeeping situation, so all of the goalkeepers or whoever ultimately ends up starting. And, in these camps where you have many more days with the players, there is a competition within the competition. And, we're not going to see it because it's behind closed doors, but when you have goalkeepers and Drake Callender, 0 caps, Matt Fries, 0 caps, Schulte, 2 caps, and then obviously Zach Steffen, who has been around for a number of years, but you're hoping to see a rejuvenation with him. Yeah. So yes, goalkeepers, absolutely. I'm actually kind of interested to see what. So from I mentioned Jesus Ferreira, what Walker Zimmerman looks like under Pochettino going forward. So there's that. Kromanski, he interests me in the midfield there, as does Diego Luna, and I know a lot of people are kind of high on him. Let's see. Up top, we've talked about the fact that there are opportunities like Indiana. Vasilev from SLC. Let's see. Brian White, he's kind of been around. Other than that, yeah, I don't know. I mean, hopefully somebody shows up in both of these games and kind of surprises us and kind of puts their stamp and says, hey, we're here.
The fact that you're struggling a little bit to come up with names speaks to the fact that it's not the most exciting of rosters.
It's not the most exciting. However, make us excited. Do something we haven't seen before, either for a player that's been there before, or jump on the scene and say, hey, I'm here. Either I'm coming up from the Olympic team or I'm just kind of coming out of nowhere and say, yeah, I'm going to take this opportunity. Because everybody that we talk about in terms of the history of the U.S. men's national team at some point has had this opportunity given to them. It could be injury, it could be a coaching change, it could be just the timing, a January camp or something like that, and has grabbed it with both hands and said, yeah, I'm here. Take a look at me.
Yeah, for me, Diego Luna and Brian Gutierrez are 2 young players I like that I want to get a look at in these games. And also, only because I don't know him, so I'm curious to see what he looks like. This Matko Milijevic, the kid who plays for Newell's Old Boys, or most recently played for them, he's now unattached. So those would be the names I would pick out. Jalen Neal would have been one of them for me. So like you, I am disappointed he's not around because I keep saying the U.S. needs somebody new to emerge in the center of the fence.
Now, a reminder, we will be doing a Spaces post-game of Venezuela and then a live pod post-game of Costa Rica. Now, Venezuela, Mosse, as people that watch and listen know, we've been talking about them the last couple of years, especially when it comes to CONMEBOL qualifying. Started out incredibly hot, have cooled down a little bit. I think they're 7th or 8th place right now when it comes to CONMEBOL. But still, of the two opponents, I'm probably more excited about the first game against Venezuela as opposed to Costa Rica, although Costa Rica with a new coach might provide something different and new.
That new coach is our old friend, Miguel Herrera. That was an interesting appointment. Piojo Herrera taking charge of Costa Rica. So, yeah, that spices that up a little bit. I will say, from a coaching standpoint, having Jesse Marsh in Canada, Miguel Herrera, Costa Rica, Mexico is always interesting, even though Javier Aguirre isn't the sexiest of managers. So, yeah, there's some interesting coaching matchups to be had in CONCACAF now.
It would be interesting. I know we saw Steve Sampson years and years ago from a Costa Rica perspective. If an American coach was at some point across the way when it comes to some of these CONCACAF teams and what that looked like. And I know right now that's what makes Canada's in and of itself is already an exciting and interesting team right now, but that they're coached by American makes it that much more. So we'll see as the coaching pool continues to grow and literally grow in terms of age, maybe some other Central American and CONCACAF teams take some chances on some American coaches.
Now, Mauricio Pochettino beginning his first full year in charge. The U.S.'s last foreign manager, Jurgen Klinsmann, made some interesting comments about Pochettino at this recent coaching convention in Chicago, which got your attention.
Yeah, so Klinsmann was there and packed room to hear what he has to say. And, while at times I disagree with Jurgen Klinsmann, I do think that he is, and this is kind of redundant sometimes because Germans can be incredibly blunt, and I do think he's incredibly honest at times about the way that he thinks about the game and the way that he answers the question. Anyway, so he was talking about Mauricio Pochettino and what his charge is, what his mandate is. And unlike Jurgen Klinsmann, who we know one of the knocks on him was that he seemed to be a much more big picture, long-term technical director type than a hands-on day in and day out X's and O's coach. Well, I think he's in the comments that he had, and I'll just paraphrase it here. Basically, he said Mauricio Pochettino is coming to win soccer games. He's not coming, to develop players or look into, what's under the hood when it comes to American soccer ultimately. And I think that that's a logical and expected type of response. But I think it's also important. And so when we are seeing Mauricio Pochettino here, I think Jurgen Klinsmann wanted to separate out what he felt that his responsibility was as opposed to Pochettino. And certainly the limited time that Pochettino has lends itself to what Klinsmann is saying here. Let's see. He's not coming in to change the youth soccer landscape, the college system, or MLS. It's not his job, and he's not going to spend time on that. He'll spend time gathering his players around him, figuring out who the best players are that he can bring to the World Cup and how he can make sure that we are going to go far and maybe going to a quarterfinal or a semifinal. Knock on wood. From your lips to the soccer god's ears, Jurgen Klinsmann, if that's what's happening. But he's absolutely right in that in the past we have had coaches, and most of them, that we've kind of looked to from top to bottom and this holistic type of approach and vertical integration and all of that kind of stuff. None of that applies here when it comes to Pochettino because he is coming late to the game here. The only thing that matters and the only thing that Pochettino ultimately is going to be judged on is what happens in the summer of 2026.
You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops twice a week right here on my very own YouTube page. The only way to stay up to date is to hit that subscribe button down below. Size the day, and see you soon.